Hi, everyone. Happy Friday and welcome. Today, we are going to be talking about the top three things you need to know. Top three things you need to know before you are engaged, especially if you are getting engaged to someone that does not have a status in the US or someone that lives outside of the US. That is what we're going to be covering today. If you find this interesting, if you are interested in learning more about US immigration, green card, citizenship, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and subscribe. And if you have a question about this or any other immigration topics, you can leave a comment in this video. And if you would like to know about your own specific immigration status, or if you are considering filing for a fiance, a spouse, um, and you want to know what the process would be for you specifically, feel free to reach out. My contact information is in the description of this video, but you can reach out on my website, lilylegal.com, and by calling my office at 508-443-1788. Excuse me. So, my always disclaimers. There is going to be a baby. The baby may or may not make noise. So just bear with me. If you have questions, put it in the comments. I do go back and respond to those. And depending on your question and how many people really have that same question, I may do a whole video just on it. So go ahead and ask me your questions. If you're watching this on the replay, you can ask questions too. So let's get into it. So the first thing is, if you are engaged, if you are planning on getting engaged, congratulations in advance. It is February. A lot of people get engaged in the month of February. So I wanted to get this topic out to you, because if you are getting engaged, you really want to think about these things. Especially, like I said before, if the person you're getting engaged to does not have a status in the US, if they're physically in the US and they don't have a status, or they are outside of the US and you would like them to come and live with you in the US, then this video is for you. All right. So the first consideration, very first consideration is, where does the person live, right? If they live in the US, right? If the non-US citizen that you're getting married to lives in the US, then the question becomes, what is their immigration status? How did they come into the US? If they came into the US with a visa, your process is going to be smoother than someone that is getting engaged to someone that they didn't come into the US with a visa. So those are the important first questions when before you start the green card, K1 visa, all that process. Is the person in the US? If they are in the US, did they come to the US with a visa, or did they come without a visa? If they are outside of the US, then the consideration becomes, well, do you want to apply for a green card through marriage, or do you want to apply for a fiance visa? So I will be doing a whole video breaking down the fiance visa process, what you need, and all of that. But let me just tell you the first thing you need to consider before you can even do the fiance visa. If you two have not seen each other in person within the past 2 years, you cannot do a fiance visa. If you are not a US citizen, you cannot do a fiance visa. So just keep that in mind, right? You're getting engaged to someone that's not in the US, and you have not seen each other in person within the past 2 years, the fiance visa will not work for you. If you are, getting engaged to someone that's outside of the US, and you are not a US citizen, you are a permanent resident of the United States, and you want to file for the person, you do not qualify for a fiance visa. So that is the consideration, right? Because some, when you go through these questions, it's going to lead to you making decisions about whether you qualify for the fiance visa or not. And then if you don't qualify for the fiance visa, then your option becomes the marriage based visa. And that means you will have to go and get married. Right. So, timeline, all of that, you really want to think about those things of, is engagement enough for me to start the immigration process? All right. You can do a K1 visa for if your fiance is outside of the US. If they are in the US, um, there's no K1 process unless they're legally, they have a valid status in the US and plan on going back for their visa interview for the K1 and then coming back into the US. The K1 would not be an option in that situation. All right. I hope that's not too distracting for y'all. So that is the first consideration, right? First consideration, are they in the US or outside of the US? If in the US, did they come with a valid visa, or did they come without a visa? If they are outside of the US, when was the last time you saw them in person? Because that's going to determine whether you would qualify for a K1 visa or a marriage based visa, right? And then if you yourself are not a US citizen, right? If you are a permanent resident, then just know the K1 option is not available to you. You have to wait till you become a citizen to do the K1 option, or you have to get married before you can file for your fiance. So that is important to know in the front end, because then you can think about how long of an engagement are you going to have. Because if you want a short engagement, right, you want to get engaged, today and get married in a month's time, well, the K1 may not be the best option, because for you to get a K1 visa, you will have to file an I-129F, wait for that to be processed, have your fiance go to a visa interview, right? Wait for the visa interview to be processed and scheduled, have them go to the interview, have them be approved, come into the US, and then you can get married. So if your window of engagement to marriage is 1 month, then the K1 is not your option, right? The marriage based green card would be the option, because you can just go to where your fiance is, get married, and then they can come into the US. Then you can file for them to get their green card, right? So it's really important to think about your timeline, because that's going to determine which options are available to you. So if you are a US citizen and you are getting engaged to a non-citizen, first question is, are they in the US or are they outside of the US? If they're in the US, then you can think about, once you get married, what's the next step, right? The next step would be a marriage-based green card application. If they came into the US with with a visa. If they came into the US without a visa, then you have a longer process to go through, right? So really start having that conversation now, because at the end of the day, when you're getting engaged, when you're planning on starting a life together with someone, you need to discuss their immigration status, so that you know what the next step is going to be once you get married, what your life together is going to look like. What if they are in the US, you really need to know that, so that you know what are the possibilities that this person may end up in immigration court proceedings and potentially be asked to leave the US, right? So it is so important that you're having these conversations ahead of time to know what their immigration status is. The second thing is know what your timeline is as far as marriage is concerned. Are you trying to have a longer, are you okay with having a longer engagement because of, once you start the K1 process, you have to wait for that whole process to be completed before your fiance can come into the US and then you two can get married. If you start the K1 process and you get married before your fiance is in the US with the K1 visa, the K1 process stops. It ends. The time that you were waiting goes away. So just keep that in mind. Do not get married once you start the K1 process, because then you will not be getting a K1 visa and you will have to start over with a marriage based visa, which is going to take you longer because now all that time you had waiting on the K1 goes away. So it's really important that you look at your timeline for getting married. Okay. Your timeline for getting married will make a difference when it comes to what type of visa you're applying for. If you want a super short engagement, you want to get engaged and go to where your fiance is and get married there and then come back. If that's your plan, then the fiance visa is not for you. And it's good to know that ahead of time so that you can already start planning your visa process. All right. So really know what your fiance's immigration status is. Know what your marriage timeline is, and then know what the income requirement is for your type of visa. Okay, for your household. So if you are filing a green card application for your wants you to get married for your spouse, you need to know how much income you need to be making in order to sponsor that person. Okay. Because if you are currently not making enough income, then the plans may be to get another job, add more income, get a joint sponsor. Those are conversations you want to start having now. I know, I know. Um, it's things that you don't really think about. It's things that you may not want to think about. But just know if you are filing for a non citizen to get their green card, you need to have an affidavit of support filed for their application. And if you're doing a fiance visa, you also need an affidavit of support. So you need an income. If your income is not enough, that's one of the things you need to start thinking about. If your income is not enough to sponsor the person on your own, is there someone else that can help you be a co-sponsor? Right? If you can get a co-sponsor, that's something to consider now, not later. All right. And then if you are not able to get a co-sponsor, you know that on the front end, so you know, okay, I need to get another job, I need to, work more hours, something, right? You need to basically start planning how you can show that you have enough income to support this person. All right. So that's the that's really important as you're going through this process. Okay. Now, those are the visa. If the person is qualified for a visa, what type of visa. If they're in the US, you need to know, did they come in with a visa or not. If they didn't, it's going to be a longer process. If they're outside of the US, then you need to figure out what type of visa they qualify for, right? Is it the fiance one or is it the marriage one, especially depending on your timeline. Yeah, right? Your timeline for getting married and your own immigration status. So if you're a US citizen, you can file for either the K1 or the marriage one. If you are a green card holder, you can only do the marriage based application once you get married. All right. And then as far as sponsorship, make sure that you have enough income or assets to show that you can support your household and your spouse or fiance, depending on which option you end up going with. And then, of course, the processing time, right? Things to keep in mind. If the person is outside of the US, the processing time really, really can affect when you can actually start your life together. And planning for that ahead of time can really reduce a lot of stress for you and your fiance. And I want people to start thinking about this before they even file, before they even do anything, because you want to kind of already have in your head how much time you're going to be spending apart if the person is not already in the US. Okay. If the person is already in the US and they came in with a visa, you typically will not have to spend any time apart. If they didn't come in with a visa, there is a time period that you may have to spend apart when they have to go outside of the US for their visa interview. But all that to say is conversations need to happen, right? You need to know that there is a long backlog right now. There is timing issues. So just because you get engaged today doesn't mean that your K1 visa is going to be approved in like a month and then they're here and you can, no. So you and your fiance really have to talk about how you're going to stay connected to each other, how you're going to see each other while that visa application is pending, while you're, going through that long processing time. Because maintaining your relationship is something you need to think about on the front end, right? Making sure that you are safeguarding your relationship against the stress that is the immigration process is so important. Okay. Because I have seen people like really break down because of the long waiting periods, and they just, you know, don't know how to move forward. And that's because they did not plan on there being a long waiting period. They did not know that there was a waiting period, right? So it's good to think about those things ahead of time, not when you are in it, right? Because once you start the process, you're in it, and the stress can get to you and your fiance because they're like, what's going on? We already filed. What are you not, there can be a lot that goes on in that process, but you want to make sure that you are maintaining your relationship, that you are safeguarding your relationship against that. And you do that by making a plan, right? You want to plan for the long haul. That is the visa process. If they're in the US, it's going to be a lot easier for you to plan for that because you are both here, you are both able to basically be with each other while you're going through the process. Right. The people that have the hardest time with this processing time is people that are not in the same country. Right. When you're getting married to someone that's outside of the US and you're going through the visa application process and it's taking forever, it becomes a whole stress on your relationship. So people that their fiance is going to be outside of the US are going to feel this more than people that their fiance is in the US. So really, the best advice I can give you is to safeguard your relationship. Know that this is coming, right? Know that the waiting is coming, and plan on ways to see each other, ways to continue building your relationship while you're going through this process. And don't let the process affect your relationship. Okay, that's really what it all comes down to. The reason I did this video is because I want you to start thinking about all these things so that when you start the process, when you are moving through the process, and the question of income comes up, the question of okay, should you do the fiance visa or this marriage visa comes up, you are not stressing because you already know you have to make these decisions, right? You already know that you have to think about how soon do you want to get married? What, do you want to get married in the US or outside of the US? Like all those conversations you're already having, so that when it's time to make those decisions, you and your fiance already had those conversations, right? When the processing time is taking, longer because of backlogs, you already expect it, right? You already know it's coming. So then you and your fiance already have a plan for how you're going to maintain your relationship through that process. So you're able to then safeguard your relationship against the whole U.S. immigration process. I can tell you right now, I had a call with a potential client, and she was just breaking down because she said something to me that I will never forget. She said she's a U.S. citizen, born in the U.S., and she said to me, "My government is ruining my marriage because their green card application is taking forever." And you know that you're not able to travel, you may not be able to travel as much as you want because you have a job, you have all this stuff. So that's why I wanted to make this video, because you need to know that these things may happen before you do it, so that you can safeguard yourself and your relationship and not end up in a place where you are you know you are really feeling the separation, and it gets to a place where you are having conversations with me or another lawyer about how the government basically is ruining your marriage or is ruining your relationship. So it does happen. I have seen relationships break down because of the separation, because of the years of separation. But you can plan for that. You can plan for that and safeguard your relationship and make sure that you are continuing to build a life together, that you are continuing to make plans to see each other, to continue communicating, even while all these other things are going on. That's what's going to make a difference. So do not let this immigration system, do not let the backlogs and the time that it's going to take ruin your relationship. Okay. So the best thing you can do is to be prepared for it. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please, please, please leave comments, ask me questions. I'm happy to respond to them. I will be doing a whole video on the fiance visa and a video on marriage-based visa. So if you're trying to decide between one or the other, I'll be doing videos on those so you can see exactly what your options are, what the things you need to think about are, and you can make those decisions as you're going through the process. Like, I want you to come here and get the information that you need to make those decisions, and just know that you are not alone. Okay, you are not alone. We're here to help you understand what is going on in the immigration world as you're going through this process. All right. So, as always, if you want to schedule a private strategy session with me to talk about your particular immigration case and how we can help you with the process, you can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com, or by calling my office at 508-443-1788. And as always, if you found this video helpful, if you know someone that will find this video helpful, please do go ahead and share this video with them, like this video, and most importantly, if you want to know more about U.S. immigration, green card, citizenship, filing for family, or you yourself getting a green card in the US, then go ahead and subscribe to this channel. That's really all we talk about here. So go ahead and subscribe, and and make sure that you turn on notifications so you know every time that I go live. I do go live every single Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If I am not going live that week, you will know ahead of time, and I most likely will have a pre-recorded video for you on that Friday. So I do not leave you hanging. And as always, I am Lillian Chupura. I am a U.S. immigration lawyer at Lilly Legal, where we do immigration law and we do it well. Bye for now.